content creation changed my trajectory of life. It's definitely opened up a lot of doors for me that I never thought were possible. Your people are your biggest asset. People believe in people. They don't look to logos and trust the logo instantly. Rewriting how corporate was. One night I thought to myself, I can't keep doing this.
Welcome to the Employee Advocacy and Influence podcast. My name is Lewis Gray. My co-host today is Elliot Elsley, and our special guest is Robyn Fawcett from BT. So we've got lots to discuss today. I'm so excited about this episode. But Robyn, before we get into anything, can you just introduce yourself and your role at BT for our listeners?
Yeah, hi, I'm Robyn, social media manager and personal branding specialist. I am currently running a content creation academy for BT Group and EE. And within this employee advocacy program and academy, I'm training our employees on how to be content creators for the brand.
So excited to hear more about this because, Robyn, you and I had an initial conversation in the run-up to this podcast recording today, and you were kind enough to share some insights, and we've saved the best of it for this. But a few things we wanted to go through today. So we'll talk about how BT is not only empowering employees to share content, but also to create original content too, which, as you've just alluded to, is something that we're particularly excited about diving into. I wanted to talk about how you're encouraging employees to use their own voices. That was something that really came across in our initial conversation. And you're super passionate about personal branding for leadership teams as well, which is something that we are constantly talking about on this podcast. So we'll unpack that as well. But just right off the bat, I think if we start if we go back to day one, what sparked the idea for your employee advocacy program at BT?
Yeah, so what sparked the idea is I am actually based in the north, in Liverpool, sorry. And I was travelling up and down to our London office, 3 times a week. And it was getting tough because them trains are not the friendliest. They're always breaking down. And when I was on one train home one night, I thought to myself, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep travelling back and forth. What's the solution to this? So I thought to myself, why don't I just train our employees on how to become content creators, and we can have that always on content, and I don't have to keep traveling up and down to London. So that's sort of where it all came from, really.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I think, obviously it's one of the things that organizations will struggle with, and social media managers especially. You can't be everywhere all at once. So I love the idea or the reasoning to make this happen. And obviously we'll come on to how you're making it happen. But once you understood how this would work, how did you go about just identifying those initial creators and advocates for the program?
Yeah, so with me sort of within the world of social media, I was already capturing a lot of content around the business. And I've worked for the business for 7.5 years now. So I had a few contacts and a few strings that I could pull. And I knew the right people who were quite good on camera for when we planned previous campaigns or previous shoots. But what I did do is send out like a big email across the board to our business. So the email was sent out, and then also individuals I did pinpoint from past projects, and I used them when I was first starting off with it.
Just the low-hanging fruit approach of actually, I just sent an email and kind of asked people to opt in is such an obvious thing to do, but it's something that so many people forget to do, which is like they try and pinpoint and cherry pick the people, which can be really difficult because if somebody's kind of not sure about wanting to do it, then you're like, I need to go find somebody else, and you're going in and out through this process. When you've just got that kind of opt-in, did you get quite a lot of hand raisers just off that email in itself? Did you verify those people? Was there a vetting process?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we sent it out to, it was about 150 people, and we got 90 replies from that. So, the volume of that was insane. And that was our first ever email sort of that we sent out. And then from that process, yes, there was sort of a interview stage. So we wanted to know that people would be quite good in front of camera. So I put together almost like a bit of an application, really. It was a 1-minute video that people had to film of themselves saying why they wanted to be involved in the Content Creation Academy and what they could bring to the brand and what their personal story was, just so we get a sense of who they were. So that's how I could judge it and gauge it. And then once I knew what I was playing with, then I could fill in the gaps and train them up on what I was looking for the brand.
So interesting. I think it's an important distinction here. We're talking about content creators as well. So you're not just, for context, Robyn, when we're speaking to people on this podcast, quite often they're managing like scaled employee advocacy programs with a tool. They want employees to share content. But I think this is only more impressive because you're talking about onboarding or 90 people putting their hands up and saying, I would like to create content. It's not just, yeah, I'd be happy to share that post that you've put together. And we know, obviously, going into 2026, and, you know, we've been talking about this for years, but the importance of employee-generated content just can't be understated. So can you just go through your current process then? So you've identified your creators, you've got people who have raised their hands. When it comes to getting them to, create a piece of content, so from the brief to you being sent the content and that content then being approved, what does that whole process look like?
So it is quite manual. I do a lot of sort of the legwork. So I will look at my social calendar, see what's sort of coming up within the calendar. I'm also very immersed in what's going on in the world at the moment as well. So I will link the two up, our social calendar and what's happening. So it's on trend, whatever content that we create. And then what I'll do is once I've sort of got my ideas and right, I think that'll do really well on our socials at the moment because this is trending and this is what we need for the brand. I'll combine the two and then I'll just send out the brief to our content creators and they will go ahead and create that content for me and then they would just email it back to me with what I've asked for.
And in terms of the approval process after that, so obviously within an organization the size of BT, I'm assuming, obviously I don't know, but I imagine there might be approval processes beyond, you might get a piece of content you're super happy with, but then the powers that be might have to sign off on that. Are you able to give us a little bit of context on what that approval process looks like and how long it can take as well?
Yeah, I mean, luckily for the sort of like always on content for like Instagram, TikTok, we're okay with that. We have a lot of autonomy on our team, and there's not many stakeholders that we have to get past for that type of stuff. For more of the LinkedIn content, then that's when we need sign off. Sometimes in advance, we will know what we need because we are recruitment marketing. Most of our content anyway is all around the jobs and the lifestyle at BT. So it's not so sensitive when we are, posting that content out there. There's not that many people that we need sign off from. It's just mainly our team. Do we all agree with it? Do we think it's right at the present moment to post? And then off it goes, really, into the world.
And I suppose one of the best things you can do in terms of, well, getting content that you're happy with, but then getting content approved if approvals are necessary, is just making sure that employees know what they can and can't say. They know best practices for creating content and things like that. And we know from the leaders that we've spoken with on this podcast that employees lacking confidence and general social media know-how can be one of the biggest blockers for employee advocacy programs. So have you created any internal training, tools or guides to help employees get started?
That's sort of my main specialty. So outside of work, I am actually a content creator and an influencer in the space. Content creation changed my trajectory of life. It's definitely opened up a lot of doors for me that I never thought were possible. And I actually got this role from having my own outside page. So for me, training our people and enabling them, the how and where do we start is very important to me because that was once me. So that's why it's a little bit different to many employee advocacy programs that I've seen in the past because many people haven't actually done it themselves. Whereas I've got that first-hand experience because I've worked with multiple brands before. I've done it, I've gone from 0 to 20k followers. And it's a full-time job in itself. So I know what they're looking for and I know what we're looking for as a brand. So what I did is I went away and created an e-learning course. So before I stepped into a social media role, I actually have a background in e-learning. So I used to be an e-learning designer. So again, being a content creator outside of work, also having a background in being a designer, and now in social media. All three of them things combined led me to this position, basically. So, yeah, I sent out the briefs exactly what I was looking for. I put together videos of training, which I was in the training, and I worked with a friend of mine as well, who we sourced in, and we give them top tips, exactly how to film, position the camera, what we're looking for, confidence with camera. So it was a full training package that they got. So it was, very sort of outlined like ABC steps to help them on this journey of, amplifying their voices and sharing their personal stories across the business.
I think those things make such a difference as well, right? With the just having a little bit of know-how already kind of layered in for people. I have this, and our fantastic editor is always asking me about, right, we have some podcast lights here and where they are on my desk and how they're pointing at me, and they'll probably run out of charge in a little bit and then she'll be annoyed. But having all of those different things but already laid out for me means that things look better just by default. And it's such simple things that unless you go through the trial and error of going, what happens if I put a light under myself? What happens if I put a light above myself? What do these things look like? You only learn that by trial and error, or somebody just saying, hey, here's the cheat sheet. This is what you do. Do all of these things. It's going to look infinitely better. You don't have to stumble over it all.
100%. I think it's giving our people the toolkit and the right toolkit, because already, if they're feeling uncomfortable with creating content, there's multiple things that you've got to think about. But if we give them the right steps and cushion that approach, then it's going to help them on their content creation journey, I think, and they'll produce more for us. That's how I look at it.
Quick one. If you've ever wondered how your employee advocacy efforts are actually performing and not just what you think is happening, Disseminate offers a free employee advocacy health check. All you have to do is provide your company name, and our team will pull real social data on how active your employees are, what impact it's having, and then how you stack up against your chosen competitors. So whether you're assessing the performance of your employee advocacy program or getting a benchmark for a future program, these will be the insights you can act on. The link's in the show notes. I think you're in a really, I don't want to say fortunate, because you've put yourself in this position. I think you're in a really powerful position in that you are leading by example. It's not just that you're posting to your own social media channels. It's you have a history and you are currently putting yourself out there. You're creating video content and things like that. So it's not just you saying, hey, look, you should do it like this. We'd love it if you could do that. You're showing them how it's done. You're giving them those examples, but then you're also leading by example and doing it and sharing it yourself. I mean, I've seen the content that you put out on your own LinkedIn. I think it's fantastic. You are, the star of the video, going and interviewing other employees around the BT offices and things like that. So I think it's a great position to be in, and it only encourages more of that activity. But Robyn, I wanted to talk to you about scaling this and the challenges and the wins that you've seen. You mentioned in our initial conversation how important it is to you that employees use their own voice and their own tone when they're creating content, rather than just reading from a script. And we say this all the time, but obviously there's so much AI content out there now as well that I think authenticity is key to content success. But what does all of this look like in practice? And then how do you balance that with brand safety?
Yeah, so with my content creators, I will always go through the do's and don'ts and the policies and, what not to do and what to do. So that's outlined straight away, before they start doing the videos and stuff for us. But yes, with the age of AI, I suppose it's using it in the right ways. I mean, it is very authentic, the stuff that we do, and that's what works so well for us. It's the educational content and the squiggly career stories of, their journey in BT and where they are now. That does really well for us. So I suppose what we do is we get to know our content creators. So I certainly get to know them before they do start creating content. So in the brief, I'll advise, try and get this shot, or tell us a little bit more about this, or dip into that. So suppose that working relationship that I have with them and being able to pull out the key parts of their story makes it authentic. And it's a two-way street. They'll give me ideas, they'll tell me what they want to create and things like that. And then it's that working relationship that pulls it all together. And, we get the beautiful video, or we get the carousel post and things like that.
Also just makes a big difference when people want to post and create the content that they're being asked to create. right? It's if you give somebody a list of things and they're able to choose the one that, hey, that's the thing I would like to create content around, or that's what I'm really interested in, or that's just fundamentally my expertise, so I should talk about that. It's so much better than going, here's a singular item that everybody needs to go and create, and a lot of people just don't really align to it in any way, shape or form. I think those it's something that a lot of companies forget. Like, it is a working relationship with your employees, right? You're asking them to create content, post content, whatever it might be. It needs to be for them first, and then for the brand second, essentially.
Yes, 100%. I mean, the employees are the brand. That's how I see it. So it's understanding what they're doing every single day for our brand. How are they driving change forward? Let's implement that into the stories, because that's what's turning the cogs, in the business. So that's what we really drive within the Content Creation Academy that I'm running here.
I absolutely love that, and I couldn't agree more. Robyn, I did want to talk to you about the challenges, because I know while we'd like to think this is always smooth sailing and everything goes right on the first try, there can often be hurdles when you're trying to get something like this off the ground. But what challenges have you come across with scaling advocacy and content creation across such a large organization like BT? But then how have you addressed them?
So we have obviously a lot of people wanting to get involved, and we always get a lot of volunteers. But what it actually comes down to is actually them getting the time to do it. Because it is such a fast-paced environment. There's multiple different teams, getting involved and things like that. So really for us, it's understanding, that's why we always put a very clear brief. These are the time frames. Can you do it for us? If not, we'll, go to plan B. But I suppose that's the biggest struggle that we have. We get lots of volunteers, but then it's sort of them being able to have the time to do this content creation for us. That's what we've struggled with in the past there.
Sounds like more people might be the solution in its own right, which is sort of a bit of a chicken and egg problem. But the more you get, the more people that might have the time, and then the more complicated it gets alongside it. That's part of the fun.
Yeah, definitely. And I think at the moment it is sort of just, like a one-man band, just me sort of running it. So I think if we had one more person, or, a team, really, it does certainly take a team to run something like this. I think we could scale it even further, There is something that I am trial running at the moment, which is training the managers on how to become content creators, and then they then train their staff on how to do that. So start with the top, and then, work down basically. So that's another approach that I'm trying, almost having like ambassadors within that space, and we'll see maybe if we can scale that way also.
That's so interesting to hear, and it's something that Elliot can probably speak on a little bit more than me, having managed or helped manage a number of employee advocacy programs with our clients. But something that we've seen our clients do on a number of occasions, and it's actually what we advise, is to start with leadership teams, start with management, and then work down from there. Because I think we quite often use sales as the example. If you have a sales leader who is frequently posting on LinkedIn, or whatever social media channels they might be posting to, with salespeople being some of the most time poor people within any organization, it kind of sets that tone of, okay, time can't be an excuse, because if this person can do it, you can do it. But then it also just communicates that this is not only what's the word here? I don't want to say expected, but it's an empowerment play, I suppose.
It's the lead by example element, right? When you see a senior leader doing something, when you see a VP at a business doing something, that telegraphs the idea that that's something that you could be doing, and that actually that's something maybe you should be doing if you're that way inclined towards kind of progressing in that direction. So it's such a simple thing, really, in most businesses. Get your executives doing it. It means everybody else will go, hey, this is something that I can and should do. Some people will always turn the other direction and go, actually, it's still not for me. But if they're not doing it, that's where it becomes more difficult, because you're asking people to create content and they go, well, nobody else seems to be doing this, so why should I? And that's really all you're trying to fight against from my perspective.
100%. And, when I've worked with executives in the past, they're more than just a job title because they do have to give so much more important messages. They have to land it. Their credibility needs to be there, and the organization needs to understand who they are and what their values are so that that message lands. So that's what I work with the executives on is, really getting that brand image right and actually understanding who they are. How can we be relatable to our audience so that we can get more people on board? And I know we touched a little bit upon the, AI before, the authenticity of AI. That's even more of a need why our leaders need to be authentic because what's real and what isn't anymore. So, by having our leaders as thought leaders and having this more of a social presence and get involved in our content, it really does shine the sort of best light on the brand because ultimately, they are the brand voice also. So it's great when obviously they get involved with our executives there and we get them on board with our content.
Yeah. Do you tend to find, and in my experience of this and, the entire process at all sorts of different businesses, the challenges senior leaders face, not to be completely unfair to all senior leaders, tend to be actually more technical challenges just around the sheer function of social media and what should I do? How do I post this? When should I post this? Versus my experience with some of our clients that have done the same sort of employer branding exercise from a recruitment marketing, getting graduates and people like that to do it. They're digital natives. They know how to use social media. They can create content pretty well. But it's about encouraging them that they have a voice to be able to do that and they should be doing that. Do you find is that the same at BT, similar kind of challenge set?
100%. And when I have these setup calls with the executives, we take it step by step, we build on it. So I understand what platform they would be happy to post on. We start with one platform at first, and then we will set a target. I'll understand their goals of what they're trying to achieve, what's the brand messages that we're trying to land at the present moment. And then we start with 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, and then we reflect on the time period of what we've chosen, what worked, what didn't work. We'll go into likes, shares, comments. Also, what's happening in the world, how can we make it relatable to our business area as well. It's a whole process of me understanding who these people are to really sort of get inside of their heads and, be able to help them and again, really sort of champion them in the workforce as the executive who's driving that innovative thinking, that change, that thought leadership within the space that they, want to change or land messages within.
Well, Robyn, something I wanted to come on to is the evolving role of employee advocacy and employee-generated content in both brand building and employer brand building. But before we come on to that, it's just one question I always love to ask people because there's some fascinating stories that tend to come off the back of this. But do you have, and could you share, if so, an example of employee-generated content or, a post from an employee-led campaign that performed particularly well? So I'm looking for your biggest win here, I guess.
We did create a behind the scenes of Robyn reporter style UGC content. Now, what that was is it was giving people an insight of what life at BT and EE is really like. There was a main character to it, and the main character was me. Now, the reason I became the main character was because I needed to lead what good looks like for future people that step into my shoes, basically. So I was going around the offices and I was interviewing people. But the very different thing about this is how we made it so different but current was that it was corporate, but it was social media. So one of the examples, describe your job title using emojis. That was a really fun one because, of course, social media, everybody uses emojis, and that was quite relatable to our external audiences as well as internal as well. And then we had a second one which was describe your job title as a Netflix TV show. Now straight away there's sort of a bit of a hook on that. Netflix, that's interesting. Everyone's sort of watching Netflix at the moment. It's cold outside, what else is there to do? So there's them sort of things that we jump into, and it's playing on the fact that, okay, yeah, it is corporate, but then we're still bringing it into like more of that modern take on it. So yeah, and then people get to explore the offices, they get to see it, what it's actually really like. They actually get to hear from the actual people who are working, different jobs, what their job titles are and what they do for the business. So that was very successful, and we will continue that series now. And it goes out every Friday, this series that we've created, and people now come to us and they want to be involved, and it's sharing that sort of sense of freedom that we have within social media. We're still keeping it on brand, but we're making it fun at the same time, and our employees are wanting to get involved. They're wanting to share their story, and we will go to different offices. We'll be in Manchester one week, we'll be in London the next, we'll be in Birmingham, the next time that we do it. So it's involving as many people as we can. And we've also interviewed executives as well within that, series that we've got going. We've got an audience now who are waiting for the videos to drop every Friday because it's something different.
Do you feel that's doing a job? Because I got this when I saw the videos on your LinkedIn profile, but do you think that's doing a job of transforming how people think about BT as a place to work and the roles that are on offer there as well?
100%, yeah. I mean, some people just think that we are only a broadband company, and it's such a shame because, we do so much more than that. We keep the planes in the sky, we are the network. So I suppose by really digging into, okay, let's not make it complicated anymore. Let's make it super simple for people. Let's make it black and white. Let's go around the offices. Let's speak to our people and let's make it fun. It's changing the narrative of that. It's rewriting how corporate was, giving people that inside look into the company is doing the world a good, basically. We're getting to learn as well as be entertained from the content when people watch our videos.
Yeah, I can absolutely vouch for that, and I'd encourage everybody listening to go and check out those videos on Robyn's LinkedIn and on BT's LinkedIn page as well. So, Robyn, while we're discussing wins and successes, I think a natural next question is talking about how you're reporting on the overall success of your program. So, how are you reporting on the impact of employee-created content currently?
I mean, for us, it's all about engagement. It's about creating that awareness that, there is all these wonderful careers at BT and there is progression as well. You can start off in a call center and end up in corporate. There's all these sort of different opportunities. So what we really look at is, what's the engagement been like? How many sort of, likes, shares, views have we got? And then that's what we lead with, really. Are we growing our social media channels? Are more people aware of us? And then the campaigns that we run, we will track sort of, what is the recruitment volume from that? How many people have clicked on that? Have they seen our campaign and has that changed their thought about, oh, actually, I didn't know a cybersecurity apprenticeship was available, but from that content I now do. Or we track the engagement and then we'll track sort of the KPIs and how well our campaigns have done as well.
But Robyn, looking ahead, so obviously you've done more than laid the foundations for success. You've got a thriving employee creator program. What do you hope to achieve from this in the next 12 months? Where do you want to take it next?
And I would like to scale it fully across the business. So within BT Group, we do have different enterprises. So we have Openreach and we have e-retail. So my next mission, when I talked about the managers before, I'm actually going to go into e-retail and I'm going to start that program of work there with them. So that'll be a little bit different because we started in corporate units with obviously in the offices and things like that. And then we'll be taking it to retail and see how the program lands there. And then hopefully after that, it will get Openreach on board and maybe more of their engineers and things like that.
So, Robyn, why do you think employee-generated content resonates so much more than corporate content in today's climate?
We have everything at our fingertips of what we could ever imagine. We can find anything that we want online. We can Google and we'll get the answer straight away. Because we are in the age of the golden entrepreneurship, a lot of our young people now can make money online very, very fast. And, corporate opportunities and corporate jobs aren't really seen as the go-to instantly anymore, because people can just make money so fast at their fingertips. So I think now brands have to try even harder to retain that talent and to attract the right people into the business. That's why we do need to have a very strong social presence. We need to show our people and the new people everything that we can offer them to retain and attract even more people within our space.
I actually think that's such an interesting, something I've not really thought about is just the fundamental culture shift in the way people perceive, particularly businesses like BT and larger corporate businesses. It's a really valid element in this kind of more modern social media age. People aren't lusting after the corner office and a suit in the same way that, the Mad Men era probably gives us as a visual for a lot of people in the sort of 60s, 70s, 80s, and all the way through probably to the early 2000s. People do want to be content creators as their primary job. That's what kids want to do. They want to be influencers and things like that. It's a really interesting thought process from a branding perspective is, hey, we need to not be this big corporate entity that's rigorous and compliant in all of these different formats. We need to show that there's some degree of heart and soul in all of this and fun for people to kind of be able to engage with.
100%. There needs to be flexibility there. That's what, the Gen Z audience are certainly looking for. By 2030, 50% of the workforce will be Gen Z. And because we have grown up with the internet, we've seen these opportunities, there's a lot more travel that we can do as well. And it's like, why would we work a corporate and be stressed at the top when actually we could work from a laptop on a beach in Thailand and still earn the same salary? So it's certainly perspective, I think, sometimes with stuff like that. And yeah, it's moving with the times and thinking, okay, well, how can we continue to create content of how people go home and relax and watch content? We still want our corporate content for them to see at that present moment while they're relaxing, but we can still make it fun at the same time. So, and then obviously, with COVID and things like that, that work-life balance, when people were able to work from home, there was that massive shift where not everybody needs to be in office anymore to work and be their most productive selves. So that is something that corporates definitely need to make sure that we are shining a light on that area too, to keep attracting the right talent into the business.
Robyn, you've unintentionally perfectly teed up my last question I wanted to ask you. And I wanted to thank you as well because you've been so generous with your time today. But just one last question, and that is, what advice would you give to companies still stuck in a control, company-first communications mindset?
I would say that, your people are your biggest asset. People believe in people. They don't look to logos and trust the logo instantly. So by giving your employees a mic or giving them the time to champion what is actually going on in the workforce, sit down and record a video and chat, you're opening so much more opportunity for future people to be interested in the brand, I would say, because there is that honesty. It's that, I feel like from a video you can get a lot more, but from a logo, what are you getting from it? You're not seeing a person there, people trusting people. And then that's the main reason that employee advocacy and employees getting involved will drive forward, the rest of the years to come with the digital age that we're living in now.
What a fantastic thought to finish on, Robyn. That's absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you being so forthcoming with your insights today. I'm sure there's plenty that our listeners can learn. I would definitely encourage anybody watching or listening to go and check out all of the work that Robyn is doing. And Robyn, just finally, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.